Hello again, and welcome to another Squidnet demonstration video. In this video, we'll be discussing Squidnet's job submission form that's used for submitting rendering jobs to your local render farm. From the Project folder window, press the New Job button on the left to open up a new job submission form. This form is what you'll use to submit jobs to the local render farm. On the left side, you'll see your job's rendering parameters. On the right, you'll see application-specific parameters for the job template that you select. For this video, we will not be submitting any jobs, so we can ignore the form on the right for now. At the top of the form, on the left side, is the template selection dropdown. This is how you determine which rendering application your job is to use. This list was defined by the templates you selected earlier in the job preferences settings. The Project folder field specifies which project folder this job profile will be saved to. The scene shot name indicates which shot this job is for. This value is used later in the job queue window to group jobs that belong to the same shot under the same heading. The Auto button, when pressed, creates a unique job ID. The Use Scene Name button will generate a job ID that's based on the rendering scene file. This will only work if the scene name field in the application form has already been specified. The job ID uniquely identifies the job in the workflow. Job IDs can be up to 255 characters and contain any combination of letters, spaces, and numbers. Next to the job ID is the color selection dialog, which you can use to assign a specific color to your job. This color setting will better identify your job when listed in the job queue. The description field is a placeholder for a simple text description of the job. In the Basic Settings section, the Max Slices field indicates how many active slices can be active at one time. Specifying a value of 0, the default, will tell Squidnet to distribute as many slices as possible to available rendering engines. Now a quick note on job slices. Job slices are how Squidnet distributes job processing information to your farm's render nodes. When your job is submitted, Squidnet will determine how to best break up your job request into smaller manageable tasks. These tasks are called job slices. A job slice contains rendering information that's used by the render engines. As determined by the start and end frame setting, slices can render a single frame or they can render multiple frames. The number of frames per job slice is determined by the frames per slice value in the template's rendering parameters. We'll get more into job slices in later videos. Now back to the Basic Settings section. If set, the Use All Available Cores checkbox tells Squidnet to use all available cores on the rendering host to process each job slice. If unchecked, the number of cores used will default to 1 core per slice. Note that some rendering applications may ignore this setting and use all available cores instead. The Start Suspended checkbox tells Squidnet to immediately set the state of the job to suspended when queued. It'll be up to the user to unsuspend the job later. The Slice Timeout multiplier is used to prevent rogue slices from being stuck in a rendering state forever. The setting is a multiplier of the average render times for all completed slices of the job. If a slice exceeds the timeout value, it'll be automatically cancelled and requeued. For example, say that the slice multiplier value was set to 3 and the average render times for the first 10 slices was 10 minutes. If any one slice exceeds a render time of 30 minutes, that slice will be automatically cancelled and requeued. Be careful when using this setting because it's possible that the rendering times between frames of the same job can vary significantly. The slice timeout in minutes value determines the maximum time that a slice will render. If a slice is still rendering when this limit is reached, it'll be automatically be cancelled and requeued. As with the Slice Timeout multiplier, be careful with this setting because it's possible to put a slice in an endless rendering loop. The Randomize Slices checkbox will tell Squidnet to distribute the slices to the farm in a random fashion. Normally, you'd set this checkbox if you want to preview random completed frames of your animation job. If not checked, the default is to distribute jobs in a sequential order. The Slice Fails Before Stop setting tells Squidnet how many slices will be allowed to fail before the job is automatically placed in an error state. The Skip Existing Frames setting will tell Squidnet to automatically set the slice to a completed state if it detects that the frame images are already present in the output folder. The Check Output Content checkbox, if set, will mark the slice in an error state if no output files are generated. The Create Output checkbox, if set, will automatically create the output folder if it doesn't already exist. The email completion checkbox tells Squidnet to automatically send the farm administrator a job completion email when the job has completed rendering. The estimate completion checkbox tells Squidnet to determine the render time for the entire job by extrapolating the render times of the first few completed slices. The render queue priority slider determines the job's priority level. Squidnet has 25 possible priority levels for each job. A priority value of 0 is the highest while a value of 24 is the lowest. The render pools dialog determines which pools to submit the job to. See the render pools video for an explanation of how render pools are used and created in Squidnet. The Exclude dialog allows you to determine which render nodes this job can, or cannot, be used for rendering. By default, all render nodes specified by the render pools are used. The tile rendering button opens the tile rendering dialog. We'll get into Squidnet's tile rendering feature in another video. In the advanced window, the copy and move setting allows you to copy, or move, the completed frames to a specified network folder. This setting will take effect only after the job successfully completes. The Job Dependencies window shows what dependencies this job may have. For example, you can decide that this job must start only after some other dependent jobs have completed. We'll get into Squidnet job dependencies in another video. The Memory Options window defines how the available RAM is to be used on the rendering host. Note that by default, Squidnet will automatically cancel any slices that uses more than 97% of the host's available RAM. This is needed to prevent the host from becoming unstable, sluggish, overtasked and overburdened. To disable this feature, set the memory used value to 0. The Notes window allows for the entry of information related to this job. The Render Account settings allows you to render this job on each host using a specific user account. This setting only applies to Windows-based rendering nodes. The Video Generation window allows you to create an FFmpeg video from your animation sequence. We'll get into FFmpeg usage and videos from animation sequences in a later video. The Job Completion drop-down indicates how to disposition this job once it completes rendering. When you're ready, use the Submission buttons at the bottom of the window to add your job to the render queue. The Submit button adds your job directly to the job queue and closes the window. The Apply button will add your job to the queue but still allow you to change the same parameters should you decide to submit another job with similar settings. Make sure to change the job ID between job submissions. The Save and Quit button will save your job to the project folder but not add it to the render queue. Use this option to reopen, edit and submit your jobs at a later time. This concludes this video on how to use the local job submission form.